For as long as I could remember, my older sister had this strange habit of slipping out of the house every single night at exactly 3 a.m. It wasn't just the timing that unsettled me, it was the ritual itself. She would always wear the same worn, dark jacket, the one that looked like it had been through too much to ever be washed properly again. No matter how many times I asked her where she was going or why she did it, she'd just look away, never offering a word. It was like she was guarding some secret I wasn't allowed to know. Our parents brushed it off as typical teenage rebellion, a phase she'd grow out of. They'd say things like it's just a night walk, or she's probably meeting friends, but those explanations never sat right with me. The way she moved, so silently and deliberately, like a shadow that belonged to the night itself, felt wrong. There was a heaviness that settled over me every time I heard the creak of the floorboards or the soft click of the front door opening. I'd lie awake, staring at the clock, waiting for that moment when she disappeared into the darkness. Years passed, and the pattern never changed. 3 o'clock came like a grim reminder each night. It wasn't just about curiosity anymore, it was fear. A creeping dread that something terrible was hidden beneath her secret outings. I wanted to believe there was a simple answer, something harmless behind the silence and the jacket, but deep down, I knew it was more sinister. Our family lived under the same roof, yet a distance grew between us, thick and cold. The unspoken words hung heavy in the air, like a wall built from denial and secrets. I felt isolated, carrying this secret all alone, afraid to speak out, afraid of what might come to light. The night I finally decided to follow her, my heart pounded so loud I was sure she'd hear it. I wasn't prepared for what awaited beyond the familiar streets and the comforting glow of our neighborhood. That night shattered everything I thought I knew about her, about us, and about the house we called home. It's easy to want to look away when the truth starts to unravel, especially when it threatens the fragile balance we've tried so hard to keep. But the story doesn't end with that night, it's only just beginning to reveal its deeper layers. What happens next changes everything, shifting the ground beneath us in ways I never imagined. Stick around, because the pieces you think you understand will start to move, and new faces, new motives, and unexpected connections will come to light. It's in those moments, the ones that catch you off guard, where the real story lives. So stay close, there's more waiting just beyond the next turn, and you won't want to miss a single detail. I always thought secrets were something adults kept locked away, hidden behind closed doors and whispered in hushed tones. But as a kid, I learned that sometimes the darkest secrets live right under your nose, tangled up in the people you love most. My sister's 3 a.m. disappearances were the first crack in the facade, the first sign that something was terribly wrong beneath the surface of our quiet house. It started when I was about 10. At first, I noticed the small things, her bedroom door creaking open in the dead of night, the faint sound of footsteps fading down the hall, the cold draft left behind when she slipped out. I'd lie awake for hours, heart pounding, trying to catch a glimpse of where she went. But the house swallowed her whole, and by morning, she was just my sister again, sitting at the breakfast table like nothing had happened. Over time, the disappearances became more frequent, more deliberate. It wasn't just the timing that unnerved me, it was the way she changed when she came back. Her eyes, usually so bright, were clouded, shadowed by something I couldn't name. The easy smile she wore during the day became forced, her laughter hollow. Sometimes, I caught her staring at nothing, as if chasing ghosts only she could see. I wanted to ask her what was wrong, but fear held my tongue. Fear that the truth was something I couldn't handle, something that might shatter the fragile world I clung to. Her body changed too, thin, almost fragile, her skin paler than before, like she was withering away piece by piece. She moved with a strange tension, like a coiled spring ready to snap. I started noticing bruises, faint but persistent, hidden beneath long sleeves even in the heat of summer. I wondered if she was hurt, but whenever I tried to confront her, she brushed me off with a coldness I hadn't seen before. It was the same coldness that filled the space between us, growing thicker with every secret kept. I remember one night, the night everything began to unravel. I was wide awake, heart pounding, when I heard the door again. This time, I followed. Not just down the hall, but out the front door, into the cool night air. The town was silent, the streets deserted except for the fog rolling in low. I kept my distance, hidden behind bushes, watching her disappear into the darkness. She didn't just wander, she moved with purpose, like she was meeting someone, or something. That night planted a seed of terror in me. I started piecing together the strange rumors swirling through town, people vanishing without a trace, whispers of shadows lurking near the woods. What if my sister was caught up in something bigger, something dangerous? The thought twisted my stomach, but I couldn't turn away. I had to know. Days blurred together as I watched her, searching for clues in her silence. I caught her scribbling strange symbols in a worn notebook, her hands trembling. I saw her standing at the edge of the forest under the moonlight, whispering words I couldn't understand. Each secret she guarded pulled me deeper into a darkness I wasn't ready for, but I couldn't escape. Not when the line between love and fear was so thin, and the truth felt like a shadow looming just out of reach. I wanted to believe she was still my sister, the one I'd grown up with, the one who used to laugh and dream. But every night, as the clock struck 3 and she vanished again, I felt the cold truth settling in. She was hiding something, something dangerous. And whatever it wasn't just tearing her apart, it was pulling the whole town into its grip. Over the years, the news kept bringing more disappearances, people vanishing without a trace, swallowed whole by the quiet streets and dense woods surrounding our town. Each case added another layer of unease, a creeping dread that settled like fog over everything I thought I knew. The reports were always the same: last seen near the edge of town, usually late at night or early morning, no signs of struggle, no clues left behind. The authorities scratched their heads, baffled and frustrated, and the town whispered rumors that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Every time a new case appeared on the local news, my sister's reaction was impossible to ignore. It was subtle at first, a flicker of something behind her eyes, a tightening of her jaw, but as the disappearances increased, so did her strange behavior. When the anchor announced the latest missing person, she would freeze, her face draining of color. Her usual restless energy would still her completely, like a shadow had fallen over her soul. Sometimes she'd mutter under her breath, words I couldn't catch, or stare long and hard at the television as if trying to will the images to reveal some hidden truth. I remember one night clearly. The news showed grainy footage of a search party combing the woods near Old Miller's Creek. My sister sat next to me, eyes wide, hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then, without warning, she stood and left the room, leaving behind an eerie silence that felt heavier than the darkness outside. It wasn't just fear I saw in her, it was something else, something darker. A mix of guilt, urgency, and a kind of desperate hope that terrified me more than any ghost story. I tried to talk to her about it once, to ask if she knew anything, but she shut me down with a coldness I had never seen before. "Don't ask," she whispered, voice barely audible. "Some things are better left alone." But the way she said it only made me want to dig deeper. What was she hiding? And why did every disappearance seem to stir something inside her, like a wound reopening? The nights became harder to bear. I found myself watching her from the shadows, trying to catch a glimpse of the sister I once knew. But instead, I saw a woman haunted by secrets too heavy to share, pacing the floor in the small hours, whispering to herself. Sometimes she disappeared just as the clock struck 3, slipping out into the cold, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. The pattern was too clear to ignore: the disappearances, her strange vanishings, the restless nights. It was as if the town itself breathed a dark rhythm, and she was caught in its pulse. There were moments when I thought I caught her watching me, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. Was it a warning? A plea? Or something more sinister? The line between love and suspicion blurred until I couldn't tell whether I was protecting her or preparing for the worst. I felt trapped beneath the weight of silence and secrets, like the walls of our home were closing in, suffocating me with their quiet accusations. One evening, after another news report about a missing teenager, I stayed up long after she had gone to bed. The house was too still, the kind of stillness that presses against your eardrums and makes your skin crawl. I pulled out a small notebook and began jotting down everything: the time she disappeared, the patterns in the disappearances, the strange noises outside at 3 a.m. I wrote down every detail I could remember, every whispered word and every glance that didn't reach her eyes. The more I wrote, the more the pieces started to form a chilling picture, one I wasn't sure I wanted to see. From that night on, I kept my secret notes hidden in the drawer of my bedside table, a silent record of the darkness creeping through our town and into my sister's soul. Something was lurking beneath the surface, something that had already stolen too many, and I feared it would come for us next. But I couldn't look away. I had to understand. Even if the truth was the most terrifying thing of all. The night was darker than usual, the kind of darkness that swallowed the edges of the streetlights and made the familiar feel strange and ominous. I lay in bed, heart pounding in the quiet, the house settling around me like a secret waiting to be uncovered. I had been waiting for hours, since midnight, every creak and whisper of wind making me tense, waiting for the moment I knew would come, the moment she'd return. When the front door finally clicked open, I held my breath. Through the crack of my bedroom door, I saw her silhouette slip inside, slower than usual, like she was trying not to make a sound. My sister. But she wasn't the sister I knew. Her clothes were torn, ripped at the seams, hanging off her like they'd been through a storm, or worse. My skin prickled as I watched her move, her steps uneven, almost limping, and then I saw it, her hands. Something dark clung to them, thick, sticky, and almost black in the weak moonlight filtering through the window. I wanted to call out, to run to her, but my throat was dry, and my limbs refused to move. Fear wrapped around me like a cold shroud. What had she been doing out there? Where had she been? The questions swirled in my mind, relentless and cruel. She moved toward her room, dragging her feet, and I could see the faint outline of bruises beneath the torn fabric on her arms. My heart hammered in my chest, and I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stay silent anymore, couldn't pretend I didn't see the broken pieces she was trying to hide. The house felt suffocating, the walls closing in with every step she took. I wanted to reach out to help, but I was terrified of what I might find if I looked too closely. That night, the air was thick with unspoken fears. I sat on the edge of my bed, the small lamp casting long shadows across my notebook lying open on the floor. My hands trembled as I reached for it, the pages filled with my secret observations and questions, fragments of a nightmare I couldn't shake. The darkness outside pressed in, whispering that this was only the beginning. I knew deep down that something was wrong, that whatever had touched my sister out there had changed her, and maybe even changed us all. I wanted to deny it, to convince myself it was just a bad night, a rough patch. But the evidence was right there, in the torn fabric, the dark stains, the way she moved like a ghost haunted by something no one else could see. Fear mingled with a fierce determination. I couldn't let this continue. I couldn't let her slip away into whatever that darkness was. The next time she left, I would follow her. I would find out where she went, what she was running from, or what was chasing her. My heart pounded as I whispered the decision into the silence of my room. The night was far from over, and I knew the moment I chose to act would change everything. Then, just as I was about to close my notebook, the shattered silence was broken by a soft, almost inaudible sound, like a whisper carried on the wind. My breath caught. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the house. I stayed awake, wide-eyed and alert, the seconds stretching endlessly as shadows shifted and crept along my bedroom walls. The house seemed to hold its breath with me, the faintest creaks and groans magnified in the thick silence. I had to be ready. Whatever she was running from, I had to follow her, no matter how much terror clutched at my chest. I pulled the blanket tighter around me, but the chill wasn't from the cold, it was the dread settling deep inside. Every sound, every flicker of movement felt like a signal, a warning. I kept my phone on silent, tucked beneath my pillow, but I couldn't stop glancing at it, the faint glow tempting me. I knew I had to stay invisible, hidden in the dark, like a shadow waiting for its moment. My breathing slowed, trying to steady the wild pounding in my ears. The dark wasn't just a blanket, it was a shield, a cloak that could hide me from whatever lurked in the corners of this house, or in the streets beyond. I told myself I was strong enough, that I was ready. But the knot in my stomach tightened every time I thought of what might happen if I was caught. I rehearsed my excuses in whispers, as if practicing for an interrogation I hoped never to face. I didn't hear anything. I was asleep. I don't know where she went. The words felt hollow but necessary, a shield to protect both of us if the night turned against me. I imagined the questions, the accusations, and how I'd dodge them with a calm I didn't feel. Each phrase was a thread I clung to, weaving a fragile barrier between the truth and the danger that awaited outside my door. Fear was a constant companion, crawling beneath my skin, tightening its grip whenever I thought of stepping out into the unknown. But beneath that fear, there was something else, something fierce and unyielding. A promise to my sister, whispered in the dark. I wouldn't let her face this alone. I had to be brave. I had to be the shadow behind her, the silent presence that no one would notice until it was too late. The hours dragged on as I sat motionless, barely daring to breathe. I counted every minute, every tick of the old clock hanging crookedly in the hallway. The world outside was silent, but inside my mind, A storm raged, questions, doubts, and the relentless pulse of determination. I imagined her footsteps, soft and urgent, leading me into the night. What was she running from? What was waiting for her in the shadows? If you want more stories that unravel dark family secrets, subscribe now. There's so much more to uncover, and the night is just beginning. As the clock's hands inched closer to 3 a.m., my heart pounded louder, matching the rhythm of my resolve. The house seemed to grow colder, the darkness thicker, as if the night itself was holding its breath for what was about to come. I pressed my back against the wall, ready to rise, ready to follow her into the unknown. The moment had arrived. I slipped quietly out the back door, the cold night air wrapping around me like a shroud. The usual sounds of the neighborhood were muted, swallowed by the dense shadows that pooled beneath the trees lining the street. My sister moved ahead with a careful, almost unnatural grace, her footsteps light against the cracked pavement. I kept a steady distance, careful not to let the faint rustle of my own breath give me away. Her figure was a silhouette against the dim glow of a lone street lamp, flickering as if reluctant to reveal what lay beyond. She didn't glance back once. Instead, her eyes seemed fixed on something invisible, something only she could see. Her shoulders were tense, hunched slightly forward, as if burdened by a secret too heavy to carry openly. I noticed the way her hands twitched at her sides, fingers curling and uncurling like she was trying to grasp a thought slipping away. The night felt alive around us, the distant hoot of an owl, the skittering of leaves stirred by a restless breeze, the faint creak of branches swaying in the darkness. Every sound was magnified in the silence, making me jump at shadows that weren't there. We turned off the street onto a narrow path that led into the woods, a place I had avoided before, shrouded in local rumors and whispered warnings. My sister's pace quickened, but she didn't break into a run. There was a strange urgency in her movements, but also a hesitation, like she was both chasing and fleeing something at the same time. The moon peeked through the canopy, casting fragmented beams that danced across the underbrush and painted her face with flickering light. Her eyes caught mine for a split second, wide, flickering with a mix of fear and determination, before she vanished deeper into the thicket. Branches scratched against my arms and legs as I pushed forward, the forest closing in around us. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath, watching. Somewhere far off, the low howl of a dog echoed, sending a shiver down my spine. I forced myself not to look back, not to let the creeping paranoia take hold. But the feeling of being watched clung to me, thick as the mist curling at my feet. Suddenly, she stopped. I nearly collided with her as I caught up, startled by the sharpness of her sudden halt. She turned slowly, her face pale in the moonlight, lips parted as if to speak but no sound came. Her eyes darted into the darkness beyond, reflecting a glimmer of something I couldn't place. Fear? Reverence? I strained to listen, to catch any hint of what she was sensing, but the woods were utterly silent now, save for the steady thump of my own heartbeat. Then she stepped forward again, moving toward a shape barely visible through the trees. My breath caught. It wasn't a clearing or a familiar trailhead. It was something else entirely, a small, secluded structure, half swallowed by vines and shadow. I had never seen it before, not in any of my countless wanderings through these woods. Its weathered wood was cracked and warped, the roof sagging under years of neglect. Yet something about it felt alive, pulsing with a quiet energy that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. She stopped at the threshold, hesitating just long enough for me to catch a glimpse of her face, flushed and pale all at once. The door creaked open with a slow, reluctant groan, revealing an interior swallowed in darkness. A faint flicker of movement inside promised secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. I swallowed hard, the cold knot of fear tightening in my chest. This was the forbidden place she'd led me to, unknown, hidden, and utterly out of reach from the world I thought I knew. And as I stood there in the shadows, the night deepened around us, swallowing every doubt, every whisper of safety, leaving only the cold, sharp edge of the unknown. The air hung heavy with a stale metallic scent as I stepped cautiously through the cracked doorway. The building groaned under its own weight, a skeletal relic abandoned long ago, its walls scarred by peeling paint and graffiti that seemed to claw at the darkness. My feet crunched over broken glass and scattered debris, each step echoing in the hollow silence like a heartbeat. The faint flicker I'd seen earlier had vanished, but the shadows here felt alive, watching, waiting. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, the night chill seeping into my bones as I moved deeper inside. The floorboards beneath me trembled slightly, threatening to give way in places. Above, The ceiling was a jagged maze of exposed beams and rusted pipes, dripping water in slow, irregular taps that punctuated the oppressive quiet. Somehow, this place felt more than forgotten. It felt deliberately hidden, a secret kept from the world for reasons I wasn't yet ready to face. A narrow corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit by the weak moonlight filtering through grime-coated windows. I noticed strange markings on the walls, numbers scratched hastily, symbols I couldn't recognize. They felt like warnings, or maybe breadcrumbs left by someone desperate to be found. The air grew heavier, thicker with the scent of mold and something else, something faintly coppery. My heart pounded harder when I spotted them, faint impressions in the dust on the floor, footprints that didn't belong to me. They led toward a rusted metal door at the corridor's end, half swung open, revealing a room swallowed by darkness. I hesitated, my breath shallow. This had to be it, the place she thought I'd never see, the place tied to all those who had vanished without a trace. Inside, the room was larger than I expected, a forgotten storage area cluttered with broken crates and moldering furniture. But what caught my eye was the wall opposite the entrance, a collage of faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and torn notes taped haphazardly in a chaotic mosaic. Faces stared back at me, eyes blank yet pleading. Missing persons, all of them. Dates and names blurred with time, but the pattern was unmistakable. This was their shrine, or maybe a macabre map of their disappearances. I knelt closer, tracing a trembling finger over one photo, a young woman with a hesitant smile. My breath caught. That face, that smile. It was the same as the sister who had pulled me here, the one who had vanished months ago. My mind reeled, the pieces clicking into a horrifying puzzle I hadn't been ready to solve. A sudden noise shattered the silence, a soft, deliberate shuffle near the back of the room. I froze, every nerve screaming. Someone else was here. The thought sent a cold rush down my spine. I whispered her name, but the only answer was the creak of the building settling and the distant howl of the wind outside. The faint glow of a flashlight flickered just beyond the shadowed corner, and I realized the night's secrets were far from finished. I edged closer, heart pounding so loud I was sure it would give me away. The flashlight's beam danced over the worn floorboards, settling on a trapdoor I had never noticed before, tucked beneath the faded rug near the far wall. My breath hitched as the beam disappeared down into the darkness below. Without thinking, I crouched and peered over the edge. There, illuminated in the weak glow, was my sister, her back to me, shoulders tense, moving with a quiet urgency I had never witnessed before. She was arranging small, strange objects on a makeshift altar, a circle of cracked candles, dried flowers, and fragments of something I couldn't quite identify. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed a tiny wrapped bundle in the center. The air felt thick, heavy with an unspoken weight, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I wanted to call out, to demand what she was doing, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I watched, frozen and horrified. The flashlight flickered again, and I caught sight of her face, pale, eyes fixed on the objects before her with a mix of desperation and reverence. She whispered something, barely audible, a string of words that didn't sound like any language I recognized. It wasn't a prayer, not exactly. It was something else, ancient, unsettling. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones. What had my sister gotten herself into? Then, footsteps echoed from the hallway above, slow and deliberate. I barely had time to register the shadowy figure descending the stairs before my sister straightened, turning to greet whoever was coming with a calm that sent a shiver down my spine. The newcomer was a man, a stranger, cloaked in black, his face half hidden beneath a hood. Their whispered conversation was quick, sharp, and laced with urgency. Words like protection, silence, and promise floated down to me, thick with menace. I realized she had been meeting him here for weeks, if not longer. The secret meetings, the hidden objects, they were all part of something dark and dangerous. Betrayal twisted inside me like a knife. How could she keep this from me? From everyone? I wanted to storm forward, to shake her and demand the truth, but fear held me back. This was no ordinary secret. This was something that belonged in nightmares. The man pressed something into her hand, a small cold object that gleamed in the dim light. She nodded, her lips barely moving, then turned back to the altar, placing the object carefully beside the bundle. The air grew heavier still, thick with a power I couldn't comprehend. I felt sick, betrayed, and utterly alone. As the stranger slipped back up the stairs, my sister returned to her whispered chanting, the words growing louder, more insistent. I needed to get out, to breathe, to process what I'd just witnessed. But as I shifted, a loose floorboard creaked sharply beneath my weight. My sister's head snapped up, eyes wide, and before I could react, a cold, eerie silence fell between us. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. What is all this?" I whispered, my throat dry. Her gaze flickered, unreadable, then a slow, unsettling smile curved her lips. "You weren't supposed to see this," she said softly. In that moment, the fragile world I thought I knew shattered completely. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, some reason behind the darkness I'd uncovered. But deep down I knew, nothing would ever be the same again. What do you think she's involved in? Share your theories in the comments below. I need to know I'm not alone in trying to understand this nightmare. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed behind me, the unmistakable sound of a door slamming shut. My sister's eyes locked onto mine, and I heard the faintest click of a lock. My heart hammered as I realized I'd been discovered. The moment her eyes met mine, the air in the room shifted, thickened with a tension I hadn't dared imagine until now. The lock clicked again, sealing us inside. I wanted to back away, to say something, but the words caught like stones in my throat. She was standing there, breathing hard, her face pale but sharp, like a blade ready to cut through the silence that had stretched between us for so long. "Why are you here?" Her voice wasn't just angry, it trembled with something deeper, fear, desperation, maybe even regret. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. I had to know. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when you kept leaving at 3 a.m. I saw the messages, the strange calls. "What's going on?" My voice was barely a whisper, but it seemed to hang in the room like a challenge. She took a step forward, eyes burning into mine. "You don't understand. None of it is what you think." Her hands clenched into fists at her sides, knuckles white. "I've been trying to protect you. Protect us." The words hit me harder than any accusation. Protect us? From what? I wanted to believe her, but the fear twisting in my gut refused to loosen its grip. Protect me? By lying? By disappearing without a word? What are you involved in? The questions spilled out, urgent, desperate. The sister I thought I knew was slipping away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. She looked away, biting her lip, then finally met my gaze again. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she admitted, voice breaking. "I'm not just leaving because I can't sleep or because I'm restless. At 3 a.m., I'm meeting with people, dangerous people. They're part of something I got pulled into long before you came back." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. What kind of people? What are they doing? The questions felt reckless, but I couldn't stop myself. Her eyes darkened. "They're involved in things you wouldn't believe, things that could ruin us if they ever got out. I'm in deeper than I wanted to be. I thought I could handle it alone, but it's not just about me anymore." She reached out, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to keep you safe from the storm I'm caught in." Fear and anger warred inside me, but beneath it all was a raw, aching ache, betrayal mixed with a desperate need to understand. "Why didn't you tell me? We're supposed to be sisters. We're supposed to trust each other." She shook her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "Because I was scared. Scared of losing you, scared that if I dragged you into this, you'd be hurt or worse." Her voice cracked, and suddenly she was sobbing quietly. "I thought I could fix it before it got this bad." I moved closer, the anger melting into something fragile and uncertain. "We're in this together now. Whatever it is, I'm not going anywhere." Her sobs softened, but then she pulled back, her expression hardening. "There's one more thing." Her voice dropped, cold and steady. "The reason I leave at 3 a.m. isn't just about meetings. It's because I have to disappear before they find me. They know someone's been talking, they think it's me. And if they catch me, they won't just take me, they'll come after you too." The room spun, the walls closing in with the weight of her confession. I swallowed, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. "Who's after you? What did you do?" She looked me dead in the eye. "I didn't do anything wrong. But someone close betrayed us. Someone inside our family." Her voice was barely audible, but the chill it sent through me was undeniable. "And I think, it's you they want to silence." The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. I couldn't breathe. The sister I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a truth so dark and twisted, I wasn't sure I could survive it. The truth settled over me like a suffocating fog, thick and relentless, seeping into every corner of my mind and heart. After that night, the fragile bond one once shared with my sister shattered irreparably. She wasn't the person I thought she was, at least, not the whole story. Her gaze, once familiar and comforting, now carried a weight I couldn't bear to meet. Every word she spoke was laced with suspicion and fear, and with every passing day, I saw less of the sister I loved and more of a stranger cloaked in secrets. Our conversations became guarded, our silences loud and heavy. I caught myself replaying her words over and over, someone inside our family, and the terrible possibility that the betrayal I feared was closer than I ever imagined. The woman I trusted, whose laughter once filled our home, seemed to be fading into shadows, replaced by a fragile, haunted version of herself. I wanted to reach through the growing distance, to pull her back from the edge, but the truth had built a wall neither of us dared to climb. The family I'd believed in, the foundation I'd trusted, now felt like a house of cards trembling on the brink of collapse. Every memory, every shared moment, was tinged with doubt. Who was truly watching from the shadows? What secrets had been buried beneath the smiles and holiday dinners? The more I uncovered, the more I realized how little I knew about the people closest to me. That realization was a wound that time could not heal. Sleep became elusive, nightmares frequent and vivid. The trauma wasn't just in the past, it clung to me, whispering in the quiet moments, reminding me that some truths are too heavy to carry alone. I felt isolated, trapped beneath a roof that no longer felt like home. Healing seemed impossible when the walls around me echoed with betrayal and fear. If you've been moved by this story, if you crave more tales of dark mysteries and fractured families from under the same roof, I invite you to subscribe and join me on this journey. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters in unraveling these hidden truths. And don't miss the next video, where another story awaits, where the shadows of the past threaten to consume what little light remains. Together, we'll face the darkness, one secret at a time.